drums.
Turn on picture phantom.
Oh yeah.
Turn them way down.
Turn them way up.
More piano through
Better? Yeah. Good morning, everybody, and welcome in this morning on this beautiful Sunday. My name is Sophia, and together with Julie, let us start with some singing this morning. I'm gonna lift my sister up, she is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sister up, she is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sister up, she is not heavy. If I don't lift her up, I will fall down. Will you sing with me? I'm gonna lift my sister up, she is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sister. I'm gonna lift my sister up, she is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sister up, she is not heavy. If I don't lift her up, I will fall down. I'm gonna lift my sister. Try to add a harmony this morning. I'm gonna lift. She is not heavy. I'm gonna. Oh, you sound beautiful. If I don't lift her up, I will fall down. I'm gonna lift my brother. I'm gonna lift my brother up. He is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my brother up. He is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my brother up. He is not heavy. If I don't lift him up, I will fall down. I'm gonna lift my people. Sing it out. They are not heavy. I'm gonna lift my people up. They are not heavy. If I don't lift them up, I will fall down. Join me for a little wade in the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Let's hear you. Wade. I'm gonna lift my people. I'm gonna lift my people up. They are not heavy. I'm gonna lift my people up. They are not heavy. I'm gonna lift my people up. They are not heavy. If I don't lift them up, I will fall down. How beautiful to hear you on this Sunday morning. Thank you for singing and welcome.
Good morning. Welcome to Foothills. Welcome to all of you who are joining us here, all of you who are joining us online through the magic of network switches.
Yeah.
My name is Reverend Sean. I'm one of the ministers here at Foothills. I use he, him pronouns.
And I'm Elaine. I use she, her pronouns. And together with Reverend Gretchen, we are the three ministers who get to serve this congregation. We are so delighted to be leading worship today, together with Julie on piano, with Sophia leading music, with Lauren and Eleanor from our family ministry team, and together with all of you, as together we hold space for this experience, and together we create community.
You are welcome here in this community where we remind each other over and over again that every single person is worthy of love and belonging, and that we're all in this life together.
We want to offer an especially warm welcome this morning to all of you who are new or still feeling kind of new. We're so glad that you're here with us. We want to do whatever we can to help you feel oriented and welcomed. We hope that you'll stop by the welcome table out in the social hall after the service. It's this curved table. We have people there in blue aprons who would be so excited to answer your questions and to help you get connected.
And if you're able to hang around after the service, whether you're new or not, we have our Inquirers class. This is a place to go to learn more about who we are as a church. And today, we're going to be talking about our social action and community service and justice teams, how we as Foothills think about ourselves positioned not just as a place of refuge, but a place that makes sanctuary for other people with partners all around northern Colorado and beyond. I don't know. You take this next part, Elaine.
All right, I got this part. If you want to go to Inquirers, yes, there are snacks. Yes, it is in room 222 in the Chalice Wing. Got it. And for everyone here who may not be a newcomer going to Inquirers, we still invite you to help us weave that fabric of belonging by just approaching someone after the service, especially somebody who may look a little lost or a little hopeful that they might encounter a friendly face, and strike up a conversation. That's part of what belonging isn't something that just happens or like a badge that you earn here at Foothills. It's something that we actively create every time we come together.
And one of the things you might do with them is you might say, hey, do you want to go check out the Take Action table? Because there, every Sunday, you can find the things that are going on in our community and meet one of the groups within our church. Today, I believe you can meet our millennial-ish group.
And what I know is that also our staff person, Jen Powell, will be there at the Take Action table, along with millennial-ish people.
So if you are millennial-ish, whatever that means to you, and you want to find other millennial-ish people, it's a great place to get connected to this group that meets for fellowship and connection.
Yes.
Well, I think we should transition because I don't know if my words will recover.
I think you're going to have such good words for us today, Sean. I have no concerns.
Well, I think we should sing. Sophia, can you help us with that?
Let's do it. Please join us in rising in body or spirit for our opening hymn today, number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song. My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, though far off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest round me roars, I know the truth it liveth. What though the darkness round me glows, songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love prevails in heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of how can I keep from singing?
Out of the flurry of this too fast summer where hope, like a summer storm, seems far off in the distance till the downpour soaks us, we find ourselves here. Here in this sanctuary we claim for hope, here amongst those who would hold fast to freedom, peace, and promise, here where we know nothing can take away our choice to love. Even in the days where division rules the airwaves and the Facebook feeds, even in these days where fear has us drawing the lines between those who look other, even today we choose loving kindness and a wide welcome. We gather to remember that we are a singing people, a people waking, a people of silence and humility, a people of unabashed conviction. And so for this hour, we breathe deeper. We slow down to feel fuller. We allow ourselves to dwell in the question that life asks of us as people, as a people, animated by a love beyond all recognition. Come, let us worship together. As we light this chalice, symbol of our living Unitarian Universalist faith, I invite you to join with me in the words of our covenant, if you wish, these promises we make one to another on this journey of life that begins with the word love. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Oh, my bad. Starting when we're tiny little children, we begin to get messages about how we should look, about how we should act and dress and behave. We get those messages from the people around us, from our parents and friends, from the things we watch, and from the stories we read.
And those messages help us form our identity. Our identity tells us who we are, and our identity tells other people who we are.
Yeah, and our identity also tells us how to act. For example, people who identify as fathers act like fathers. People who identify as nurses act like nurses.
And maybe people who identify as unicorns act like unicorns?
Yes,
Absolutely.
for sure. That is absolutely true.
Okay.
For sure. So, Elaine, what's an identity that you learned and that you put on?
Let me see if I can remember. As I put on this apron and put on these rubber gloves here. And, it looks like one of my least favorite things, a bunch of clean but not folded and put away laundry. Yeah, that's, I'm not good at that. But I think that a message that I got when I grew up is that I should be the person in the house who does all the cooking and cleaning and laundry and organizing.
Yeah. How about you, Lauren?
Oh, yeah.
How about you, Lauren? What about you? What did you learn?
I heard some stuff like that too, Elaine. And I also heard a lot about how I was supposed to be feminine in a very certain kind of way. You know, that there were certain colors and certain fancy things that I was really supposed to be into to show that I was a girl. Here. I'm not even going to put them on right now. Yep. Yep. How about you, Elle?
Oh, let's see. Well, you know, I was always a really good girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I pretty much did everything I was supposed to. Yeah. I followed all of the rules. I also was a really good student, and I got really good grades all the time.
Yep.
Yeah. I never got in trouble. I followed all the rules.
Good job.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
Sometimes, though, those identities that were chosen for us, that we put onto ourselves, they can stop working for us. They might even feel kind of like they don't fit anymore. No.
Yeah, and you know, we might start to feel like those identities might not be good for us, and they might not be good for the other people around us either.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, we can change. I eventually ditched my angel identity because, you know, it was really just too much pressure to always do everything right and to try to be good all the time, and I just never got to have any fun. I'm trying to learn to relax more and have more fun and give myself a break. I'm still working on that.
I get it. You know, big bows and makeup and fancy shoes are great for anyone who loves them, but they were never right for me. These days, my vibe has gotten a little bit different. It's more like rainbow sandals and Ren Fair headbands.
Yeah.
That fits me better.
Yeah, and I just kind of lean into the more comfy clothes these days, yeah, all the time. Oh, that feels way better. Ooh, yeah.
Well, I wish I could just say that my identity was somebody who never has to deal with laundry, cleaning, or organizing, or cooking, but those are realities of life, and so I've come to share those with the other people in my family. But you know, I put down the laundry and took off the gloves. I'm just gonna tie this apron on a little tighter because I love cooking and I love baking for other people. It brings me so much joy, and so this is a part of my kind of handed down identity, but I'm keeping it because I love it. It's me. I feel a lot better.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I
So
feel
do I.
way better like this. Yeah.
It's such a relief that we don't have to stay stuck in an identity that doesn't feel right for us. If an identity doesn't feel right, we can say no to it and shake it off.
Yes, and we can change our identities and keep changing them and try on new identities throughout our lives.
And that feels so much more free and expansive for our spirit. And the great thing is it gives us room for more growing.
Yeah, because we are always transforming, and we can almost always be more and more loving. Let's sing together now.
Hope ever, faith ever, strengthening you. Life ever, breath ever, nourishing you. And everywhere you go, may you always be home. And everyone you meet be messengers of peace.
to come forward, come right on up here in front of our stage. All of our children and youth, come on up here. Your parents can come with you if you like. I feel a little shy the first time. Okay, once we're up here, I'm going to invite all of our adults to rise and form arches with your arms, arches of blessing over the aisles. And we're going to sing our kids on their way to their small groups. You guys can turn around and go back through there.
Hope ever, faith ever, strengthening you. Life ever, breath ever, nourishing you. And everywhere you go, may you always be home. And everyone you meet, be messengers of peace. Let your light shine through, and your heart ever be true. Move in grace and gratitude, and walk in wisdom, sharing all that's good. Hope ever, faith ever, strengthening you. Life ever, breath ever, nourishing you. And everywhere you go, may you always be home. And everyone you meet, be messengers of peace.
As we begin our time of meditation and prayer, I invite you to sit up a little straighter if that feels available. Maybe open up your chest and find a posture that feels centered, that feels dignified. And if you'd like, you can close your eyes. Bring your attention to your body if you wish. And notice any sensations. You might want to invite your body to relax. Let your face soften. Let your shoulders drop. See if your belly can soften. Let go of any tension you're holding as we simply rest here. And in this posture of rest, I invite you to become aware of the breath moving in and out of your lungs. Notice the sensations that come along with your breath. Maybe it's a coolness in your nose or a tingling in your throat. With our attention on our breath and on this present moment, let us share silence together. Spirit of life, fluid and always becoming, yet steady and eternal. Remind us this morning that we are always in process, with every breath becoming, and we are never one thing. We're more than our successes, more than our failures, more than the roles and expectations we've been handed. We're more than how other people see us or how we think they see us. We are unimaginably complex in the functioning of our bodies, in the layers of the self, in our role in the greater web of all existence. Regarding ourselves with compassion, let us inhale and affirm, I am complex and ever becoming. And as we exhale, so much is possible. I invite you now to expand your consciousness to everybody in this space this morning. And if you're with us online, to everyone in the online community with you, including us. And in your mind's eye, take in the complexity of every person here. Each person with their every breath becoming. Each person more than the roles and expectations they've been handed. Unimaginably complex in the functioning of their bodies and the layers of the self, in their role in the greater web of all existence. In this community of love and compassion, we hold John Bryant, who was in an accident yesterday morning in his beloved RV. We're grateful that John did not sustain serious injury, and we surround him with love and prayers for healing. Regarding this community with compassion, as we inhale, let us affirm, all people are complex and ever becoming. And as we exhale, much is still possible. And finally, let us bring to mind someone who is difficult for us, someone who, as a result, we might be especially tempted to see as simple or one-sided or unchanging. And take into your consciousness the complexity of this person, that they are, with every breath, becoming. They too are more than the roles and expectations they've been handed. This person is unimaginably complex in the functioning of their body, in the layers of the self, in their role in the greater web of all existence. Regarding this person with compassion, as we inhale, let us affirm, all people are complex and ever becoming. As we exhale, much is still possible. With humility, reverence, and awe, we honor the complexity of humanity and all existence. May it be so. Amen.
Don't tell anyone, but sometimes, just sometimes, I find straight people a tad exhausting. Now, don't get me wrong, some of my best friends are straight people. But there are moments when I am hanging out with a group of heteros and I say something, and it dawns on me very quickly from the looks on everyone's faces that they just don't get it and are trying their very best to be polite about it. It's not an insurmountable hurdle. It's probably here, but it's there. And I noticed last year, as a tidal wave of anti-LGBTQ legislation was sweeping state legislatures, that this is a me problem, I had less desire to overcome that hurdle. I felt this pull within me. I just wanted to be around other queer people, to do queer things together. I had impulses to put rainbows on things that I've never wanted to put rainbows on before. There was this sense of a desire for almost queer separatism or queer isolationism that overcame me. And as I was trying to make sense of this impulse towards separationism, I remembered an interview that I heard with Iggy Ignatius. Now, Iggy was born in India, and he moved to the States when he was in his 20s. But India always felt like the place that he really belonged. And throughout his whole life, he knew that when it came time to retire, he wanted to go back to India, to retire in the place where he really belonged, where he could blend in, where he could just be. But as retirement approached, one glaring problem emerged: grandchildren. I see you grandparents in the room nodding. My daughters, my son, my grandchildren are all like chains, he said, that do not allow me to leave to India. And so, like any reasonable soon-to-be retiree, he saw the prospect of being able to retire, that moment where you might retire from your career and enjoy a life of leisure, and he rationally decided that he was going to build a retirement village in Florida that would feel like you were in India. And so Shantiniketan was born, a retirement village where you will find Indian food being served, yoga and Bollywood dances, but most importantly, a community filled primarily of others of South Asian descent. The idea caught on like fire. Even more impressive, the first condos went up for sale in 2008, during the worst part of the Great Recession, and they sold out immediately. Why? Residents, when they were interviewed, spoke of the deep happiness it brought them to be around other Indians after being isolated for so much of their immigrant experience. They spoke of the exhaustion of living in a culture as an outsider. Now, Professor Jeff Greenberg, who is a professor of psychology at the University of Arizona, thinks this makes complete sense. In his research, he's found that when you raise the specter of death in someone's mind, even subtly, they react with an impulse to be around people like themselves. People instantly like people like themselves more. He has this quote which is really funny. He's like, Germans, who usually are not too fond of their fellow Germans, instantly like Germans more. He also found the converse was true. Raise the threat of death, and people tend to dislike people who are different from themselves a little bit more. He postulates that because people who are different than us make us feel invisible. But when the reality of death comes closer, we're sort of done feeling invisible. He says we want to be seen. Under threat in times of stress, we humans retreat towards our own. I wonder how you've noticed this impulse show up in your life, how human it is, and yet how limiting it might be when the conception of our own can become narrower and narrower, and how the threats we feel to ourselves can be manufactured by political forces who benefit from this retreat. This nation, these United States, we find ourselves right now at an inflection point of the soul. How will we cross the oceans of these political divides and arrive together, democracy intact, having sacrificed only the superfluous and not the foundational? For as Melissa Harris Perry writes, to live in a democracy is to have the right to govern, not simply be governed, rule, not just be ruled, heard, not silence, and to lose without fearing that the winners take all. How are we to navigate the cultural waters in which our outrage is farmed, history is rewritten, but also history repeats? When we look back at history, those who think themselves as strongmen, saviors, who feed on grievance and blame are a dime a dozen. What is more unique are the moments in which a populace willingly gives themselves over to them. Far more concerning than a self-serving man trying to harvest the bounty is when a society has become so fertile to seeds like America First that they seem to blossom without effort. The dark side, Iggy recognizes about Shantiniketan. The dark side, he says, is I don't want my children or grandchildren to live in a community like this when they grow old. Retirement communities are places where people go waiting to die. Those are his words. I wonder if there's a bit of an analogy to America in there too. The dark side of a homogeneous vision of heaven. Now, the other day I was scrolling through the feed and I happened upon this video.
Morning, my toddlers requested some cornflakes for breakfast, but I don't usually keep those in the house, so I just decided to make them. I combined some cornmeal, corn flour, and a tablespoon of coconut sugar with some water until it was batter-like consistency. I then lined my baking tray with some parchment paper before pouring my
So she talks kind of fast, but here's the plot. She said, one morning, my toddlers asked for cornflakes for breakfast, and I didn't have any, and so I decided to whip them up from scratch. My first reaction was this had to be satire. I mean, have you ever met a toddler that has the patience to wait for breakfast to be homemade. C'est ça. You want cornflakes? Of course, honey. Let's mommy just spend 2 hours making them from scratch. You just go over there and play by yourselves as your hunger builds to that breaking point that I imagine will coincide just when I've got the ingredients out of the pantry. I mean, something was amiss here with this, albeit sort of kind of comforting video, maybe aspirational. Something was amiss here. I mean, the scene is more likely to be played out in Barbie's dream house than in the real world. Because, I mean, think about it. As she's making that video, who is watching her kids? What labor or wealth is unseen that makes the influencer capable of shooting a video like that by themselves in their home? But reading the comments to this video, there was thousands of adoring fans wanting their lives to be influenced by this ultimately unattainable vision of reality. Even more so when you learn this particular influencer had just given birth to another child 4 weeks prior to this video being posted. I mean, ask any parent of a newborn how many from-scratch recipes they managed to throw together during the first month of their child's existence. But my fascination was piqued, so I clicked through more of her videos. There's an awesome one of her making homemade cough drops. She just happened to have Gumgar on hand. But as I went through this, I found myself on this whole other side of the internet. From Nara Smith, my algorithm slowly introduced me into the world of the TradWives. These attractive women, homemaking and home baking, homeschooling and homesteading. You're getting a theme here, right? Women, home, but doing it with such joy. TradWife stands for traditional wife. And while each of them is unique, many of them tell a story of leaving behind the so-called modern vision of life, the modern vision of the family where both parents work, everyone rushing around, trying to get ahead financially, and opting instead to return to the basics. Very quickly, though, as you descend through the TradWife vortex, through all of the beige farmhouses, the DIY renovations, the backyard chickens, you find yourself moving more from simply an aesthetic of domesticity to the practice of it. You quickly find yourself in tutorials for how the TradWife should dote on her man, submit to him, and obey him. From focaccia comes fundamentalism, it seems. And the choice of the woman to stay home quickly becomes natural order or divine law. The seduction, though, of this narrative of returning to a time when gender relations made sense or was enforced by a set of rules that was understandable or at least recognizable, the power of such narrative cannot be understated. Because if I'm honest, I've heard almost that exact same narrative coming from people within the communities that I move through. People I respect. I want to go back to when it made sense to me, whatever the issue. Or maybe I don't want to go back, but it just doesn't make sense to me. And so I don't know what to do in this new world. Throughout our lifetimes, everything has seemed to change. From the rapid advance of technology. Like, do you remember phone books? Right, like in my lifetime, I remember going home and looking up someone's name in the white pages and then calling them on the phone, to now I'm able to use artificial intelligence to write my sermons for me. That's a joke. I wish. We've gone from buying maps in the stores to printing them from MapQuest, to having literally the map of the entire Earth in a rectangle in our pockets. We've gone from a generation where home ownership was in reach for most to the reality where my generation and below, it can seem like a pipe dream. We've gone from a generation that passed the Civil Rights Act, enfranchising truly African Americans, to electing the first black president, and maybe the second and first woman in South Asian. To the same population electing We've gone from a world where same-sex attraction was considered a mental disorder to marriage equality being the law of the land, from don't ask, don't tell to pride everywhere, from two genders to seemingly infinite ones, to people asking our pronouns, and some of us having to look up what that means. We've moved from Christianity being the default and the church seeming mandatory to a generation of nuns, none of the aboves, rising. And while we may look at this list and marvel and delight, there may be a part of us, a human part of us, that also feels so disoriented by all this change, even if we're trying to keep up. The new world can seem confounding. The old, despite its drawbacks, known. Especially when so many of these changes are making way for those who, for generations, have been pushed to the margins. Each act of inclusion can seem like a threat, each change seemingly reminding us of difference. Further compounded when touted economic prosperity did not trickle down. And the rise in tide did not raise all boats, and the Rust Belt and other working classes in rural and deindustrialized regions were left behind and then devastated by opioids. And when the fear of otherness is stoked by the very real reality that is projected that in the United States by 2024, we will become the first major post-industrial society in the world, where the dominant group established in an earlier period will move from majority status to minority status. Said another way, in 17 years, for the first time in history, there will be more non-white people in the United States than white people. We are entering always into a world that doesn't make sense to us because it is being made and discovered in the moment. As the molds of what is normal stretch like a rubber band, you feel the tension growing. The tension to retreat, to go back, to want it all to make sense again. I mean, you felt it too, that reaction. Or maybe just the grief of loss of what has changed. Even in spite of the fact that on the extremes, in the case of the TradWife, the time that they are attempting to mimic, the 1950s, the gender relations they lift up as ideal only existed but for a brief moment in time, and only for white, non-working class women. And with that racial reality, it shouldn't surprise us that the forces of the far right have been lifting up the TradWives, weaponizing it to promote a white supremacist agenda. As Dr. Christy Companion, an Australian academic who has been researching TradWives, while clearly motivating the minority of TradWives, the far right in the United States has actively celebrated TradWivery and has weaponized it to promote their own white supremacist agenda. The far right centralizes women's value as one of service. This means serving as a wife by caring for and bearing children for their husbands, serving their children by being a mother, and through these two efforts, they serve and indeed continue their imagined racial and cultural heritage. Its ideology and structure, she continues, provides certainty in times of chaos, order in times of disorder, and meaning in times of existential struggle. And the discourse of racial replacement has made its way into TradWife world. One TradWife even started a so-called white baby challenge, challenging other white women to have as many babies as possible to try to balance out the scales. And while we can look to the extreme and be horrified of what they are doing, the same impulse can exist within us as we struggle to understand how we, those who have been in the majority or the dominant groups for all of our lives, have to wrestle with what does it mean to not be at the center. One of the Facebook groups I'm a part of is called Post-Bruno White Fellas Working It Out. It was started by a fellow minister colleague, and it is a place for other white male UU ministers to support each other in becoming better allies. While it was Copernicus, we'll get to why I'm talking about this, while it was Copernicus who postulated in the Western canon that the earth revolves around the sun, and that we are not the center of the universe, a few decades later, it was the Italian philosopher and poet Giordano Bruno who postulated that the universe in which the solar system we are in is not at the center of the universe either, and that we exist amid many galaxies beyond our imagination. The group is called Post-Bruno because, as the founder of the group, Jake Morrill, writes, the idea is that we white men have been raised to imagine ourselves the center of everything. We might need to begin to inhabit a world in which we are not the only perspective. Most of us are living in this post-Bruno state. It's both a normal trajectory of a maturing person to know that we are not the center of the universe, but it is also the abnormal trajectory of a people of dominant power. To wrestle with the question, what does it mean that we lose our way upon realizing we are not at the center of the universe? The decentering of whiteness, of heterosexuality, of Christianity as the default American choices is for many perceived as a threat, creates a sense of isolation, felt by those who embody those default white, male, hetero, Christian, nuclear family. Because for the first time, they are beginning to notice difference. They are noticing the work it takes to have to actively include yourself. We have found ourselves, many of us, without the skills or the muscles to try, or rather the skills that we need to develop. What does it mean that we lose our way upon realizing we are not the center of the universe? We can look no further to our cultural wrestling with this question than last summer's blockbuster movie, the Barbie movie. Unlike the real world, where men are the center in Barbie land, the Barbies are in charge. And like how most kids play with dolls, Ken is, well, as the poster says, she's everything. He's just Ken. Barbie is literally everything. President, astronaut, doctor. Ken's job is beach. At one point, Ken says to Barbie, "I just don't know who I am without you." Barbie answers, "You're Ken." He responds, "But it's Barbie and Ken. There is no just Ken. That's why I was created. I only exist within the warmth of your gaze." Ken doesn't know who he is, if not for Barbie, so he oscillates between anxiety and aggression, trying to find any scraps of meaning and validation, but in the vacuum of self, he can only be the accessory to someone else's story. Even after he discovers patriarchy in the real world, suddenly feeling respected for the first time, and he returns to Barbie Land and convinces the other Kens to indoctrinates the Barbies into submissive roles to become agreeable girlfriends, housewives, and maids, even after he turns Barbie's dream house into a Mojo Dojo Casa house. Even after getting everything he thought he wanted, Hummers, horses, beer, it didn't do anything for the ache at his core. As the social fabric of America has been stretched in unlearning the ways in which structurally, culturally, it presupposes white dominance, the reaction to that displacement feels like a threat, not only because equity always demands reparation, but because it threatens our core identities. So when I hear Barbie say to Ken at the end of the movie, "Maybe it's time to discover who Ken is. You have to figure out who you are without me. You're not your girlfriend, you're not your house, you're not your mink, you're not even beach. Maybe all the things that you thought made you aren't really you." I hear Barbie saying to all of us, dramatic pause. I hear Barbie asking all of us, who are you without the structures of domination that enable you to inhabit your place? Who are men without patriarchy? Who are white people without racism? What is patriotism without xenophobia? I hear a call for all of us to deconstruct the ways in which our identities tether us to the past. I hear a call for Ken, maybe for all of us to find that enoughness that can exist beyond systems of domination, and maybe discovering something even more beautiful outside that Mojo Dojo TradWife Casa house, something more beautiful and more scary, because you need to find out who you really are and emerge into that future together.
Doesn't seem to matter what I do, I'm always number two. No one knows how hard I tried. Oh, I have feelings that I can't explain. It's driving me insane. All my life been so polite, but I'll sleep alone tonight. 'Cause I'm just kidding. Anywhere else I'd be a Is it my destiny to live and die a life of blood fragility? I'm just kidding. Where I see love, she sees a friend. What will it take for her to see
I think we were all just present for Foothills history. Wow. So as we are discovering our enoughness, as we discover our deeper, truer selves outside the Mojo Dojo TradWife Casa House, we might find ourselves feeling moved to support the creation of real-life casa houses. Those places of home, those places of stability and possibility that our community partner, Habitat for Humanity, makes possible. That was a hard transition, right? I think I did a pretty good job. So this month, our designated Share the Plate recipient is Habitat for Humanity, which helps families to build and to improve the places that we call home. Habitat understands that housing plays a critical role in strong and stable communities. How many people here have ever participated in a Habitat build? Yeah, oh my gosh, you're so awesome. You do stuff. And it feels so good, right? We have a Habitat build coming up on September 13th. If you want to sign up to be a part of it or to get notified about it, you can head to our Take Action table after the service and find Jen Powell and sign up. Everything that you donate today by placing it in the basket or by texting SHARE to the number on the screen will be shared equally with Habitat for Humanity and to support our mission to unleash courageous love in our lives and all across northern Colorado and beyond. We will now gratefully receive your generous offering.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of trust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
And so we come to the end of our service, that practice of gratefulness, which has become a spiritual practice for us here in this community. And so I invite you to find your gratefulness posture a little bit more alive, a little bit more awake. I think gratefulness is one of the spiritual muscles that we can practice as we enter times of turmoil, times in which we want to go back to maybe the way it was, or maybe we're feeling challenged about things that don't make sense to us. Gratefulness can help us find or strike another chord that exists alongside any of those feelings, which is that even amongst chaos and confusion, usually beauty and connection and love is there too. So I invite you to take a moment to scan inward, to notice where gratefulness finds you this morning. It could be in a small moment you've experienced this past week. Could be in something big that has happened in your life or in our world. It could be a moment of beauty that caught you by surprise. Whatever it is, I invite you to take this time and sit with it. Our minds are so good at jumping to all of the parts of life that are a struggle, that bring us down. This is a moment to not question if whatever we're feeling grateful for is the right thing, if it's enough. Just dwelling in this practice resettles us, allows us to find some of those threads that knit life together. And if gratefulness is hard for you this morning, that's okay. There is no point in forcing yourself to feel grateful. That just compounds a sense of shame. Sometimes it can be good enough to be around other people that are finding a little bit of hope today, trusting that maybe next week you'll be one of those people too. Now, all of these practices can be hard. We go through life, things change, we lose things, we gain things, and it doesn't always feel like we come out on top. So for our closing song, we thought we would return, Sophia and I, to one of the songs that our community has sung for generations, which is Spirit of Truth. But we thought we might sing it in a way that I don't think we've sung it before, which is we're going to sing all of the versions that have ever been written in a row. So the original version, the modified one, and the new lyrics that we put together just this past year. Now, some of the changes are big, some of them are small. The change from the first and the second was around kind of gendered language and accessibility to God. The third one is kind of completely different. What I invite you to do as we're singing this is to have it kind of be a mirror to that process of growing, that process of change. That as we move through time, things do change. Things that we maybe loved get put aside. Things that we were comfortable with changed. And yet, even throughout the core, it is still the same song trying to be sung, even if the words differ a little bit. Now, just one little point of clarification before we begin. The first verse has this phrase that I was unfamiliar with. It is the marts of men. That is not a typo. I thought it was. It's a reference to a Greek poem. If it's unfamiliar to you like it was for me, I invite you just to allow that unfamiliarity to sit with you as you sing. Sometimes it's okay to just encounter our own reactions. So I'm going to invite us, the choir is going to sing. I invite you to rise in body and spirit or whatever way as we sing together the evolution of this song. What does it mean that we lose our way when we are no longer at the center of the universe? Does it mean we get to chart a new path? Shucking off the old roles of oppression that would keep those at the margins in their places? Does it mean that the yearnings of our hearts can be unleashed in their fullness? Does it mean that everyone has a place at the table? I guess we'll have to figure that out together, won't we? Our service is over. Our service just begins. Go in peace and in love. Amen.